Welcome. I'm Dorothy Gardner.
And I'm Sergio Chavez. Today we are going to dive deep into the understandings how inclusive leadership is a key to growing membership. When PTA was founded in 1897, Alice McLellan Burney was quoted as saying, "The National Congress of Mothers, irrespective of creed, color, or condition, stands for all parenthood, childhood, homehood." Clearly, our PTA founders knew from the beginning that inclusion was the key to achieving their vision for children. And that vision and mission continues today more than 120 years later to make every child's potential a reality by engaging and empowering families and communities to advocate for all children.
Inclusion was central to the creation of PTA. But as we all know, inclusion isn't what PTA is recognized for in today's popular media. Even our own market research tells a different perspective among parents and educators. National PTA conducted focus groups and distributed surveys to PTA members and prospective members. The findings underscored the importance of inclusive leadership. Too many people shared that they didn't feel welcome in PTA. They shared stories of PTA cliques and PTA power grabs. Many respondents didn't know what their PTA was focused on besides fundraising. They didn't think PTA focused on what students really needed. When asked about PTA's value, most responders didn't know what to say. Are you surprised? Probably not. That's why we're talking about inclusive leadership. Inclusive leaders are more welcoming and attract more members. Of course, that is easier said than done. So just how do we become more welcoming and attract more members? One way is to talk more about our mission and connect it to what concerns family and educators most. This is where there was good news in the research and an extraordinary opportunity. When members and prospective members heard our mission, it resonated. They wanted to know more about how we advocated nationwide for all students. They were surprised to know PTA's role as an influencer of policies in their district, state, and Capitol Hill. They wondered, why don't we promote that more?
That leads us to our next recommendation: communicate PTA's impact in specific and visual ways. How is PTA in your state improving schools and communities? How are you influencing policies? How are local PTAs promoting their missions and outcomes? Not what are they doing, but what results from it. For example, promoting your fundraisers, but include the specific impacts of the fundraising. Post pictures to show you the joy kids get or the academic values from whatever results. Often local PTAs put so much into the pre-event promotion that they forget to show the impact. Show pictures, get quotes from families describing how they feel more connected, more informed, or more influential in the success and well-being of their children. Help members to understand that their PTA do support national PTA's efforts to impact policies they care about, like public school funding and school safety. Share the results from their state PTA's efforts. Go beyond the smiley photos with the policymakers. Share the results of your conversational and challenges PTA members to take it a step further with call/email your senator to say. The last recommendation generated from the market research was one that we all need to take to heart: value time. People perceive PTA's membership to be a huge time commitment. That's not true, right? It takes no time to show your support by becoming a member of PTA.
That's true, Sergio. What most people see from PTA are volunteers who give so much time to PTA. So, of course, they think it takes a lot of time to be a PTA member. I think that time commitment can feel very exclusive and intimidating. Many working parents don't think they can join PTA because they can't be at the school during the day or after school. And then it continues when we try to grow local PTAs beyond the school building. Sometimes our most awesome local PTA leaders don't think they can be involved in their state PTA because it looks like such a huge time commitment. all of those weekends and meetings and trainings and trips. So we have to ask, are we valuing our own time? Are we advancing the mission with these hours? For many of us, the choice to attend a PTA meeting or training requires us to choose not to attend something else. And often that something else is for our kids. When I hear that many PTAs are struggling with recruiting volunteers for their committees and board leadership, I have to wonder, could this be why? Think about how much time you require of your PTA leaders. How many weekends or nights do they have to give to be with PTA instead of their families? As we expand our intentionality around inclusion, we must consider the value of time. Are we welcoming all perspectives when we require so much time? This is where exclusion is more systemic than it is personal. Are we set up to be inclusive and welcoming to the single parent, to the working parent, to the parent with limited income, to the parent juggling other volunteer commitments? Are we missing out on awesome people as a result? Of course we are.
That's such an important point to reflect on, Dorothy. Whether you're alone or watching this video with your PTA peers, I encourage that you press pause for a minute. Think about these findings, considering what your PTA can do to teach and model these recommendations. Okay, our market research has covered a lot of what we need to reflect on to change our organizational culture as a whole. But every culture shift starts with me, right? So let's talk about what each of us can do as a leader to be more inclusive. As a leader, we need to continuously seek to grow our own emotional intelligence. So, what is emotional intelligence? Well, some would say it's the key to success. It is the ability to recognize, understand, and manage your emotions while recognizing, understanding, and influencing the emotions of others. Simply put, emotional intelligence is how we deal with our emotions so that we can better work with others.
Emotional intelligence begins with self awareness. Once you know how your emotions drive your actions and behavior towards others, you're better able to self regulate your emotions. Self regulation is a key to being an inclusive leader. Basically, you need to know when you need to pause and think before you speak or react. This is especially important during high stress times. Another aspect of emotional intelligence is showing empathy. Listen deeply to understand and value others' perspectives. That empathy is at the heart of making people feel welcomed, included, and valued. It strengthens your social skills that foster effective communication and relationship building. Emotionally intelligent people know how to stay motivated, and they motivate others. They quickly recover from setbacks.
Thanks, Dorothy. We are all in continuous work in progress as people, evolving as individuals and improving as leaders of other leaders. The more emotional intelligence you have, the more you understand it. You want to evolve and improve your leadership skills. You want to do everything you can to attract and nurture others as we work together. Emotional intelligence is challenged regularly by something inside you that is so detrimental to inclusive leadership: bias. Sometimes when we talk about bias, people feel the urge to defend themselves. Certainly, good people do not intend to be biased, but we're human and we all have biases. Today, we're not talking about conscious bias that results in overly negative and hateful acts of discrimination, such as racism. Inclusive leadership is not possible in the presence of conscious bias. Today, we will focus on unconscious bias. Unconscious bias happens when perceptions, attitudes, or stereotypes affects our assumptions. These assumptions negatively impact our actions or our decisions, often without even realizing it. To be inclusive, we all need to be aware of our own unconscious bias and self regulate to overcome these biases. Inclusive leaders go beyond their own connections, perspectives, or norms. We need to go outside of our own comfort zones to value the perspectives as equals to our own. You see many personal characteristics that can trigger unconscious bias. These include skin color, ethnicity, religion, or the lack thereof, height and weight, gender, sexual preferences, education or unemployment, disability status, introversion versus extroversion, marital status, hair, piercing, clothes, tattoos, even generational biases. This is not an exhaustive list, and it doesn't aim to be.
Sergio, unconscious bias presents itself in many ways that are unwelcoming. Body language, eye movements, not looking at someone when they talk, mispronunciation or forgetting a name. It happens, but it's how you respond to it in an apologetic way and make a point not to do it again. Interrupting others, taking credit for work. You know, if you're a volunteer chair and you get recognition, how do you share it with everyone else who was part of that effort? How do you say thank you? Not introducing someone. This is so key to making someone feel valued in a new environment. Not saying hello. Keeping your distance. These are called microaggressions, and they are often associated with clique culture, one that is exclusive instead of inclusive. When my oldest child started kindergarten, I was excited to be involved and made a point to join PTA and attend the first meeting of the year. My own personal childhood experience never included PTA. I attended all private schools where the parents were neither seen nor heard. So I was excited to find out more about this organization and how I could be involved. But that first meeting I attended ended up being my last meeting for the year. No one welcomed me, nor even sat at my table. It was obvious to me that the others attending knew each other really well, for there were a lot of commentaries and inside jokes. All of this made me feel uncomfortable and unwanted. While I continued to volunteer in the classroom and at school events that year, I didn't feel that there was a place for me in the PTA.
Thank you very much, Dorothy. My story is of unconscious bias. I had gone to a school to go present for Teacher of the Month. Now I'm going in the role of President-elect. I went with another colleague from Arizona State PTA. But the funny part was that when we showed up there, they assumed that we were the cleaning crew and were asking us if we needed access to certain areas of the school. I informed them that I wasn't, and I was the president-elect that was there to present at their PTA meeting. They felt embarrassed. Again, it wasn't a way for them to be in a malicious way towards me. They just assumed that I was the person, maybe because we had matching shirts or something. I don't know. But again, people make unconscious bias all the time, and that's what we need to learn. We need to take that as an experience to learn from that, to be more welcoming.
Sergio, I think it's all about reaching out and making a connection with everyone, no matter what they look like, sound like, act like, no matter how different they are from you. Treat people how you want to be treated. But in PTA, it goes further than that. Our PTAs, as PTA leaders, we need to assess our strategies and systems for practices that may feel exclusionary to others. Make the tough decisions necessary to change, to stop norms or practices that are not inclusive to all who want to be involved in PTA's efforts. Our founders represented women of imagination and courage. They had a simple idea: to improve the lives and futures of all children. They understood the power of individual action, worked beyond the accepted barriers of their day, and took action to change the world for all children. They wanted everyone who cared about kids to be part of this cause. They wanted an all hands on deck approach. Do our strategies and systems honor that vision? Sometimes we miss the big picture. We're in the motion of doing what we've always been doing. We go from one event or one meeting or one deadline to the next. It's important to step back and think about how we can prove upon we've always done it that way. Our norms and traditions may be exactly what has created exclusion and barriers for others to join our efforts. Sometimes we have to rock the boat to speak up against exclusionary systems or processes. Look at your PTA's recent stress points, such as board vacancies or lack of diversity. What's in your PTA bylaws that may be preventing others from stepping up? What could be impairing an innovative approach to outreach and engagement? How are we positioning PTA parents of today's kindergarten? How are we operating in a way that is attractive and inclusive to the current and next generations of families? How are we involving with people we want to be part of our efforts? These are important questions. Use your discussion guide to facilitate self-reflection and board discussion. Sergio, as an individual, how can I take steps to be a more inclusive leader?
We'll start with where we begin this conversation. Continuing working on your emotional intelligence. Be aware of your biases and self-regulate your actions or behaviors. Empathize with others and seek to understand their unique perspective. Make the personal commitment, communicate, and build relationships. Take it a step further and motivate others to overcome their biases by being more of an ally. Dr. Daryl Wing Su, who is a well-known expert on the topic, recommended that you learn from constant vigilance of bias and fears about others. As you indicated, Dorothy, he recommends you pay attention to your own actions. When you recognize that you've acted upon an unconscious bias, learn from that moment so that next time you're ready to self-regulate and choose to be more welcoming and inclusive instead.
In figure skating, they say it takes 10 times doing something to create a new muscle memory. This is the same. Be intentional about one of your unconscious biases and change the way you respond. That's self-regulation. Dr. Wing Su also encourages leaders to interact with people who are different than you. Start with, how are you? If you want to go deeper than that, find out what concerns them most for their children. That's a natural connection to PTA's efforts. Listen to understand and empathize. People are so interesting because they're so different. Seek to make your PTA more interesting. Dr. Wing Su acknowledges that we will all do things that create feelings of exclusion. If you say or do something inappropriate and someone calls you out, Dr. Wing Su recommends that you don't get defensive. Instead, apologize and try to understand the other person's perspective deeper. Own it. Body language matters. Language matters. Make it right. Say, I'm sorry. Did I do or say something that was out of line? Then listen and own how you'll fix it for the future.
Dr. Wing Su suggests that teams discuss their biases and ways to overcome them. Like an onion, we all have layers of perspective that are unique to our own life experiences. Uncover your own biases may help you better connect with the experiences that have shaped you as a leader. It can show you your strengths, weaknesses, and opportunities for your leadership growth. Remember, we are all evolving on this leadership journey and continuous learning how to manage our emotions to better work with others.
The last thing Dr. Sung Soo recommends is to be an ally, to stand personally against bias and pro inclusion. That's where you put your PTA leadership hat back on. Look at your bylaws, your systems, your trainings, your procedures. Do they promote inclusion? Are we applying the lens of inclusion to what we need to improve for families today and in 10 years ahead? Our purpose stays the same. Our mission is solid. But our audience is changing right before our eyes. Do our environments and operations work for them? Be an ally for inclusion in PTA. Rock the boat if you have to. Action and accountability are part of National PTA's Diversive and Inclusion Policy.
Dorothy, our diversity and inclusion policy is really a beautiful vision. I think it's a great way to end this training session. Let's read it together. PTAs everywhere must understand and embrace the uniqueness of all individuals, appreciating that each contributes to a diversity of views, experiences, cultural, heritage/traditions, skills/abilities, values, and preferences.
The recognition of diversity within organizations is valuing differences and similarities in people through action and accountabilities.
These differences and similarities include age, ethnicity, language and culture, economic status, educational backgrounds, gender, geographical location, marital status, mental abilities, national origins, organizational positions and tenure, parental status, physical ability, political philosophies, race, religion, sexual orientations, and work experiences.
Therefore, PTAs at every level must openly assess beliefs and practices to ensure inclusiveness and guard against discrimination. Make every effort to create a PTA board and membership that is inclusive and reflective of its community. Encourage that all PTA activities at the school be planned by a committee which is representative of the population. Foster programs and practices that eliminate bias, prejudice, and misunderstandings within their communities.
Therefore, PTAs at every level must become acquainted with the leaders of many diverse groups in their community and collaborate with them to increase parent, family, and community involvement. Educate its leaders and members to the needs, cultural beliefs, traditions, and family structures of the population they serve, and propose change wherever discriminatory practices are perceived.
PTA values and appreciates diversity, which enriches and strengthens the structure of our society within our state and nation.
Dorothy, can you imagine if this policy was reality?
Sergio, it's an incredible vision and one that would attract millions and more people that we currently have engaged in PTA. As the policy states, it will take actions and accountability, and that begins with individual leaders. I think that's an awesome roadmap for every level of PTA.
I agree. It starts with you and me, all of us watching. We can start today.
That's right. Start by downloading the Leadership Drive's membership self-reflection and discussion guide to help you dive deeper into these and other topics featured in our series to include analyze your state PTA data and trends, communicate the value of PTA, design your PTA state membership plan, improve your local PTA customer experience, train your local PTAs to make a membership growth plan.
Thanks, Dorothy. If you have feedback on these series or would like to share some ideas on how we can support you in the future, please email ptatraining@pta.org. Finally, I want to thank you. You attract, support, and grow local PTA leaders. You are the fuel of our mission to make every child's potential a reality by engaging and empowering families and communities to advocate for all children. We are so grateful for all you do and the time you give. Thank you.